What's up, Wavelings, and welcome back to a brand new video. Today's video has got some bad news or good news depending on your opinions and feelings on the current goings-on. I want to preface everything I'm about to say by saying that while I wish well for those negatively impacted by what all is going on with ActiveBliz at this moment with sexual harassment and everything, this video has absolutely nothing to do with that. This has been something that's been in my mind for a long while now, and it's totally unrelated. Short, not so sweet, and to the point is, I'm quitting World of Warcraft, at least for the foreseeable future. If I'm to be honest, my heart has not been in the game since part of the way through Battle for Azeroth.
As before, it seeks to annihilate everything that we hold dear.
But as much as it pains me to envision a world where World of Warcraft isn't in my life, I've accepted that point I never thought would come is finally here. If a result of this video and my departure causes you all or most of you all to part ways with me, I understand that, since what you came here for is going away. Just know I thank you for your time that you've spent with me, whether you've been here for a few videos or just one caught your attention well enough for you to drop by. I appreciate that you could find joy or value from at least one thing I've put into this world and onto this platform. I kinda want to tell my World of Warcraft story from the beginning that has brought me to this point where I am today, so that'll be what I do here. I'll also give a bit of an idea what the future of this channel will look like after the story if you decide you'd like to stick around for that. Also, timestamps will help you navigate if you so choose. My story with World of Warcraft starts actually several years before the release of the game, playing a game my dad was playing at the time, EverQuest. It was, as far as I can remember anyway, the first video game I ever played. It's fallen down a similar dark hole to World of Warcraft by this point, but it still holds a special place in my heart, just as World of Warcraft always will. I played it for the first time when I was 5 or 6, or at least that's what I was told. I don't really remember exactly when I started, just that I really loved it. It was a more hardcore kind of MMORPG at the time than World of Warcraft would be when it was released. To give an idea, if you died in the game, you'd have to run back to where your corpse was to loot your belongings from it. Meaning if you couldn't get back to it safely, you actually could very well lose everything you had on your person. Anyway, that was my first MMORPG I ever played, and I was hooked on the genre from there. Fast forward a few years later to 2004 near the start of the game. I was homeschooled at this time and not doing the best focusing on said schooling, given what I have since learned is ADD or ADHD inattentive type. My dad showed me this neat new MMORPG his buddies were thinking about getting into when it came out, World of Warcraft. The moral or wisdom of this decision aside, he offered a barter that were I to focus and do well on my school, he and I would get the game after the school year and play it. Literally don't remember at all if I did well or not as a result of that, but moving along, the school year went on and near the end of it is where the consumption of many of my hours and many of mine and my parents' dollars would begin. March 29th, 2005. I played on my dad's account a few times before this, but nothing too serious. But that day is when I got my 10-day guest pass. 10 days to play the game, all I wanted, and see if I wanted to play it more after that. I remember being on my old main character at the time it expired, in the middle of a quest to collect bandanas from bandits at the Stonecairn Lake in eastern Elwyn Forest. I knew the time was coming up for it to expire, so I got away from any enemies who may attack me and waited to see what happened when the 10 days officially ended. I was disconnected. I was saddened by this and immediately went to my parents to see if they could get me the full game so I could play it more. It was around midnight when this happened, so there was no hope that night, and my parents said they'd think about it. The next day though, in the evening, I was taken to get the full game from GameStop, which is when the rest of my time in Azeroth would begin. I had no idea what I had signed myself up for by this point, I just knew I was happy. I've played off and on over the years until September 28th, 2014, when I took over paying for it myself and have been subscribed every single month since then. Actually, while making this video, I did the math for it and found it strange to discover I've spent more time in the game since late 2014 than I have before that. Considering how much more meaningful the early game was for me with what I'm about to say, that's an incredibly strange feeling. Anyway, though I didn't realize it yet, I would start my journey into growing up in the game I just got myself into. Yeah, I played other games here and there, especially when I was unable to afford the game for a month or what have you, but World of Warcraft is where I spent almost all of my time, all day, every day for several years. I was never one to go outside and socialize with people physically when I was a kid, as most people I found had nothing in common with me as far as interests go. I found a couple of friends in person I liked, fortunately, one of which would become my best friend and remains so to this day. But most I just couldn't click with very well. I've always been a reclusive person aside from with people who I really connect with, as is evidenced by my seeming complete inability to foster creation of a community on this channel. Well, while in the world of Azeroth, most of the time I spent in the game was not actually playing it, but instead socializing. I somehow managed to meet some people around my age, surprisingly, aside from one guy I really hated in the friend group who, looking back at it, was 100% a pedophile. I mean, the dude was 28 hanging out with a bunch of 11 and 12-year-olds, I mean, come on. I didn't really know better at the time though, but I met my first girlfriend in World of Warcraft. We played the game all the time together and talked through it as well as through text. She lived a couple states away, so this was a strictly online relationship. But that was okay to me, because all of my friends were on the internet anyway, on World of Warcraft. Even the best friend I mentioned previously had moved away a couple years later, so he became a mostly internet-based friend as well. My friend group on there was close. We did a lot of things together, and even wanted to eventually go to BlizzCon together when we got older. Unfortunately, as time proceeded, all of those friendships have fallen behind me besides the one. I sometimes talk with another couple of friends I met there, but we're much further apart than we used to be. When I got back into World of Warcraft in September 2014, part of me wanted to play the game because of how much I loved it and knew it, but most of me wanted to feel what I once felt again with those friends who were all gone by this point. I've enjoyed the game strictly as a game by this point, but it's never really been the same. I played vanilla World of Warcraft a lot, but never really got very far because to me, the game wasn't a game to beat. It was a tool required for me to socialize with, as I mentioned above. That said, I remember being excited for Draenei and Blood Elves and bouncing in my chair with excitement watching the cinematics for the Burning Crusade. When it was announced Death Knights and Wrath of the Lich King would require a character of at least level 55, that was when I started leveling seriously for the first time. I wanted a Death Knight. I actually thought you converted a character into a Death Knight and was kinda disappointed when I found out that was wrong, but that's neither here nor there. Prior to that announcement, my highest leveled character was my main character, my warrior, who was somewhere between levels 37 and 45 on the realm Stormrage by the name of Council Rage. No idea where the fuck such a stupid name came from, but it stuck. Initially the character was a human, but when Cataclysm came out, I was won over by the hype and got my dad to buy a race change so Council Rage would become a Worgen. I couldn't change his name though because of the sentimental value it held for me. Wrath of the Lich King was the first expansion I'd reached level cap in, 80, but Cataclysm is when I actually for the first time got seriously into endgame content at 85 with that warrior. I still have that character, that name, just sitting unused and collecting dust to this day. Partway through Cataclysm is when friendships started waning due to shifts in interests or various bridges burning, but the first half of the expansion is still nice to reminisce about. I feel like this expansion had a bit of the same issue Warlords of Draenor had, if I'm not mistaken, but I honestly just don't remember or know. I'll elaborate when I get to that expansion though. I pre-ordered the Mists of Pandaria, which gave me access to its beta for some reason, and I tried the expansion out and liked it a lot, but this is when World of Warcraft started to become just a game to me, even though I didn't really realize it at the time. I didn't play for any at all of the expansion until the very end, the last 2 months before Warlords of Draenor. I made a monk in those last 2 months though, and had a lot of fun with it until the Warlords pre-patch came out and turbo f***ed him because I had geared in a wonky way that worked for Mists of Pandaria but not Warlords. And I haven't really touched that character since. Warlords of Draenor is actually where I got to get back into the game more seriously, and I think in a weird way that expansion gets more flack than it deserves. Aside from garrisons, I still think Warlords of Draenor is one of the best expansions the game has had in its first few months. Then there was the next 20 or so months, which had next to no content that I think leaves the sour taste in the mouths of most. But no less, I leveled my current main in this expansion, Destina on Emerald Dream, and fell in love with the Druid class. Well, I've tried playing other druids, though to be fair, none of them hold the specialness in my heart the way Destina still does. In Warlords of Draenor is when a friend and I got really into arenas, with her as a restoration druid and me as feral with a badass talent that was Claws of Shirvala. No idea why they removed this talent, it's so awesome. They could have at least added the form back in Battle for Azeroth, but that's the different story anyway. Then Legion was released. As far as I see it, this is the best version of World of Warcraft to ever exist. And as far as I can tell, it's not going to get that good ever again. I actually really enthusiastically loved the game as a game during that expansion. Enough so to want to revive a childhood interest I had in making guides for the game.
I don't do bits and pieces.
The legendary grinding was a bit terrible, but aside from that, everything else about the expansion was wonderful from my perspective. Then Battle for Azeroth happened. Upon release, my druid, which had been very good and strong for the past 4 years, was suddenly cast aside, at least in the way I played it. There were also other places where Blizzard clearly messed with a more dedicated player base to incentivize player retention and playtime amongst the casual folk. Not that casual folk are a problem, but that's not my point. But this is where I felt it the most. Feral became, again at least in the way I played it, fundamentally unplayable. They had an idea for how Feral should be played that was suddenly different from years prior. This is when my joy for the game began waning and I started to see the cracks. But I remembered Blizzard has kind of a back and forth about them with the expansions for World of Warcraft. Vanilla, Burning Crusade, and Wrath were all good. Then Cataclysm was very poorly received, though I liked it. Mist was incredibly loved after the initial disgust and its aesthetic fell apart. Warlords was well hated by most everyone. Legion was phenomenal. Battle for Azeroth was abominably terrible. So hopefully it'll get better after this. The content I made for this game during Battle for Azeroth, at least for the most part, was very forced on my behalf. That's why I kinda started trying to go in a direction towards more creatively fulfilling videos that weren't strictly informational. The 20+ easy mounts video from last year was one I poured my heart into, though, so I'm incredibly grateful that it has been received well. But aside from that, I dreaded logging on to play Battle for Azeroth. Then Shadowlands came up. At first I was hyped as all hell for it, but the more we learned about it, the more it was just more of the same. Including more of the same parasitic practices from Blizzard that would increase player retention and playtime. I can say with absolute confidence, after the first week or so, I have not once logged into World of Warcraft since the release of Shadowlands unless it was to work on a video. I hate every video I've made pertaining to Shadowlands specifically. I've burned out on the game severely over the time since the downfall to me in Battle for Azeroth. Shadowlands didn't revive that enthusiasm in me. And this isn't burned out of making videos, it's burned out of World of Warcraft. It feels yucky to me to make content that I don't want to make. So in a way, especially with the explosive growth I got in the first half of 2020, I felt kinda stuck and restricted because of this World of Warcraft shaped hole I've dug for myself. Recently, I was having a conversation with a friend who would get on Modern Warfare just to do some Battle Pass progression, not because they wanted to play, but because they didn't want to miss out. I told him on numerous occasions that when a game becomes a chore, it's no longer a game and it should not be played. I should be listening to myself. World of Warcraft is a chore. It's not a game to me anymore, and it hasn't been for a long time now. I'm happy to be moving on to things I'm more happy with, but it does sadden me deeply to know that I'm leaving a very large part of my life in the past. 16.5 years of my life, well more than half of my life so far, Azeroth has been a home to me. Even if I wasn't actively playing it, I've always been subscribed when I can, just to know I can always go back home if I want to. But that home is gone now, and it's time for me to move on. I could be like other people and just say, oh, I don't want to talk bad about this topic or that topic because I don't want to create negativity. But really, I don't mind doing that if it's something I actually feel and want to get behind. That said, World of Warcraft and Blizzard both, what they meant, what they were, is already dead and gone to me. I've just been in denial for far too long. Even if they suddenly shifted their behaviors to something better, I don't see myself entertaining the idea of playing the game any longer, or any of their games, unless a friend wants to play or something, at which point it's just to do something with friends. I'm at least glad that, before their image was totally annihilated to me, I was able to go to BlizzCon twice. I went back in 2018 and in 2019. I probably would have went in 2020 had it happened and had I been able to. That all said, what does the future of this channel look like? Considering the very different direction I'm going to be going in, if I lose whatever audience I have, that's fine. I'll keep at this or eventually find myself moving towards something else outside of YouTube, whatever feels most right. At least for the foreseeable future, I'm not going to be removing or hiding any of my old videos. At the end of the day, some people still get help from those and they're providing income, so... I'm kinda rambling on that, but if you've made it this far into this video, you're likely more invested in my channel than I believed anyone to be anyway. Anyway, I'm going to be trying a bunch of different stuff on this channel as well as over on TikTok, link in the description, to see what feels best and most fulfilling to me. I've got a semi-satirical Minecraft video coming up after this one that's already done and that I'm nervous to see the reception of. I'm going to try to play around with various types of comedy-based videos, whether that's sketches or commentary or what have you, as making people laugh is probably my favorite thing in the world to do. If I can do it right, I want to try discussing game design concepts and the significance of certain games and their designs, at least their significance to me. Kinda where the semi-part of the semi-satirical part of the Minecraft video comes from. Not too sure how capable of it I'll be, but the idea of commentary has always been fun to me.
Who cares? It's preposterous!
Because I love consuming that kind of content online. I'll also be starting to play with VFX because I've always wanted to do that too. And lastly, I want so badly to be able to turn something coding related into videos because that's another passion of mine, but I am just totally at a loss for how to do that currently. Kinda checking out some other creators for inspiration about how to find a place for myself in that regard. So that's the direction this channel is heading. If you're still here, I'm happy to have you along for the ride if you want to come, but otherwise I've appreciated your attention while you've given it to me. I'm excited and nervous about the near future. Anyway, that all said, thank you very much for checking out the video and checking out the channel. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.